Chapter 5, Lesson 2 is absolute value. For the warm-up, it says Jackson owes his sister Monica $15. Monica has $10 in her pocket. Explain the meaning of zero in the situation. Well, if you think about this, okay, if Jackson owes Monica money, is that a positive number or a negative number? He owes her money. That's a negative number, right? If Monica has $10 in her pocket, is that a positive or a negative? That's a positive, right? So what do you think the meaning of zero means? Very good. So zero means that the integer zero means that neither owing nor having money. So that means you don't owe money and you don't have any. So that's zero right there. That's what the zero integer means in that situation. So on Monday, for number 2, it says Monday, Kennedy spent $2 on lunch. On Tuesday, she spent $1 on a snack. On Wednesday, her sister gave her $3. Graph the integers on the number line. So first of all, we need to know what an integer is, right? An integer on the number line, an integer is all of the positive numbers, their opposites, and zero. Let's write that down. So integers are all of the positive numbers, their opposites, and zero. Now when I say opposites, that means like the opposite of 2 is negative 2, right? The opposite of 3 is negative 3, okay? The opposite of negative 25 is positive 25, and that's what we're talking about with their opposites, okay? Now, on the number line, you will have, let me just scooch this up a little bit, you will have 0 in the middle, right? There's 0. You will have positive numbers on the right side of 0. You will have negative integers on the left side of 0. Okay? 0 is neither positive nor is it negative. Okay? 0 is just 0. Okay? So, if Kennedy spent $2 on lunch, is that a positive or negative? That's a negative 2. And what about she spent $1 on a snack? Negative 1, and her sister gave her $3. That's a positive. Very good. So this is what it looks like when you graph it on the number line. So we are going to find opposites. Okay? Now, opposites, here I want you to make sure you write down these definitions. Opposites are numbers that are the same distance from 0 in opposite directions. Write that definition down. Okay? It says here positive numbers such as 2 are graphed to the right or above 0 on a number line. Negative numbers such as negative 2 are graphed to the left or below 0 on the number line. That's what we just talked about on the warm-up. Okay? Also, we said that 0 is not negative nor is it positive. Okay? 0 is not negative nor is it positive. So 0 is its own opposite. Okay? Now this is something here. The opposite of a number is the number itself. The opposite, write this down, the opposite of the opposite is the number itself. So for example 1, it says find the opposite of negative 5. Now remember, it says opposites are numbers that are the same distance from 0 on the number line. So here, if I'm looking for the opposite of negative 5, here's negative 5. How many units is that away from 0 on the number line? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So what other number is 5 units away from 0 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Positive 5. Is everybody clear? All right. So the opposite of negative 5 is 5. Now, the way we write this using symbols is we use the negative symbol. Okay? So the integer 5, or negative 5, uses the negative symbol. The opposite of a negative symbol is a positive symbol. You should write that down. The opposite of a negative symbol is a positive symbol. And of course, a positive symbol is just plus sign, right? So here we have a negative symbol. The negative symbol, that tells us negative 5, right? Positive symbol, that's positive 5. Now, when we write a positive, you can write plus sign in front of the 5 or just the 5. If you don't put a sign, it is automatically meant to be a positive. Is everybody clear with that? Example 2, we want to find the opposite of 4. What kind of 4 is that? Is that a positive or a negative? That's a positive 4. Very good. So, without even looking at any work, according to our definition, the opposite of the opposite is itself. What's the opposite of 4? 4. Very good. So when we look at it on the number line, you can see here's 4. Here's 4. And we want the opposite of 4, which is
4.
negative 4. So the opposite of the opposite would be back to positive 4. Is that clear? All right, very good. So the opposite, so 4 is the opposite of 4. Okay, so here's the got it. Now, when you write these got it problems, you must write the entire question, okay? Because there's no work. So you need to know what the number is, your answer. What is it the answer of? Okay? So here we want to know what is the opposite of 3. The opposite of 3 is?
Negative 3.
Very good. And that's all you have to do. So problem B says, what is the opposite of negative 2? So we're looking for the opposite of the opposite. And according to our definition, the opposite of the opposite is itself, right? So the opposite of negative 2 is?
Negative 2.
Very good. All right, so now we're looking at absolute value. Please write your heading and write the definition of the absolute value. The absolute value of a number is the distance between a number and 0 on the number line. Okay? Now, because absolute value is a distance, the absolute value of a number is always positive. Make sure you write this down. The absolute value of a number is always positive or 0, because the absolute value of 0 is 0, right? So here, these are the symbols for the absolute value, okay? The absolute value are those two lines right there. Now, when I write the absolute value, I like to write my absolute value symbols bigger than my number, okay? Because, for example, if I were going to write the absolute value of 1, right? Or let's say the absolute value of 4. If I wrote this like this, the absolute value of 4, what does that look like? It looks like 141. So I want you to make sure that you extend your absolute values so that you can see that it says the absolute value of 4 instead of 141. Is everybody clear? Okay. So the absolute value of 4 is 4. Because how many units is 4 away from 0 on a number line? 4 units. You see how it's not the opposite? It is the distance a number is away from 0 on the number line. So here, the absolute value of negative 4, how many units away from 0 is that? 4 units. So that's 4. Here, for example 3, we want to evaluate negative 7. So when we evaluate, all you're doing is simplifying. When you are evaluating, you are simplifying, okay? When you get to higher level, evaluate means substitute and simplify. So evaluating absolute value of negative 7, how many units away from 0 is at negative 7 on the number line? 7 units. So the absolute value, of negative 7 is 7, okay? Now when we evaluate, this is the one I want you to pay attention to, okay? When we evaluate, here we have the absolute value of 5 plus the absolute value of negative 6. So the absolute value of 5 is 5. The absolute value, I'll click right down here. The absolute value of negative 6 is 6. And then you simplify that. 5 plus 6 is equal to 11. Okay, so for example 5, we have the absolute value of negative 7 minus the absolute value of 3. So here, we have the absolute value of negative 7, which is 7. The absolute value of 3 is 3. And now we have 7 minus 3, which is 4. And it's that simple. Is everybody clear? Here, for example C, and remember, I want you to write your original problem. Bless you. Here we have the absolute value of 14. Doesn't require any work. What's the absolute value of 14? 14. Very good. That's it. For example D, for problem D, we have the absolute value of negative 9 plus the absolute value of 3. So the absolute value of negative 9 is 9. The absolute value of 3 is 3. And on these problems, you guys, we're not working horizontally. I want you to work downwards. So 9 plus 3 is 12. So when you finish showing your work, you will see that you have an inverted triangle. Is everybody clear? All right. You want to do letter E on your own?
Yes.
All right. All right, so for example E, there's your answer. So the absolute value of negative 8 is 8 minus the absolute value of negative 2, which is 2. So 8 minus 2 is 6. Got it? All right. So when you find your absolute value, once you find the absolute value, then you don't write the absolute value symbols anymore. Okay, so when we had like the absolute value of 14, your answer is 14, no more lines. Is everybody clear? So here, a seagull is flying at 25 feet above sea level. So here, let's say here's the water, right? And the seagull is out here. Here's a seagull, right? So the seagull is 25 feet above sea level. Okay, so let's use this line. So this is 25 feet, right? Nevaeh is diving 15 feet below sea level. Okay, so here is Nevaeh down here, and I don't know how to... There's my diving person, and this person is 15 feet below sea level. Okay, so this person is 15 feet below sea level. Is everybody with me? All right, so we want to know what is the distance between here and here. Using our absolute values, using our number line, what would the water be? The water would be, on a number line, the water would be 0. Very good. The water here is 0. So above the number line, is that a positive or a negative 25? Positive. And below the water line, this would be a negative. Is everybody with me? So in order for us to find the distance between the bird and the diver, we have the absolute value of 25 plus the absolute value of negative 15, because we're looking for a distance, right? So the absolute value of 25 is 25. The absolute value of negative 15 is 15. So 25 plus 15 is 40. So the distance between the bird and the diver is 40 feet.